former Browns running back Eric Metcalf on reports that the Browns are expected to pick up Greg Newsome's fifth-year option. This from the Dog Check with Eric Metcalf podcast.
I feel good about it. I mean, because, he was one of the people they were talking about trading and getting rid of. And so by giving him this option, we're keeping this defensive backfield intact. We already kept the defensive line intact. Now we're keeping the back four intact, and that's needed. And so when you have a player like him who's a starter, who can play slot or outside, he is a vital point of that defense. And so I'm glad that we're able to keep him because we're just trying to get better.
Yeah,
you're a better football team if you have better football players. And he's one of the best out there. And so, like you said, to keep all these guys together, I'm all for it. And it looks good for where we're heading in the future.
In listening to Eric Metcalf, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't find a way to keep Greg Newsome for the simple fact better football players make you a better team. And we agree, Greg Newsome's a pretty good football player. I wouldn't be surprised if Andrew Berry finds a way to keep him and Martin Emerson and Denzel Ward.
Yeah, it's curious to me just because you talk about $15 million is what he'd be due if he signs, for the fifth-year option. Kenny Moore in Indianapolis signed a contract for $10 million per season, and I view him as the best slot corner in the game. So I don't know if the Browns can afford that price tag long term. I don't know what kind of deal they'd be willing to work out to keep him in the slot. He can play the slot fine. He's still one of the better slot corners in the league as well. It's just a high price tag for that position. And I think that another team may value him more as an outside corner than the Browns currently do, just because it's a numbers game and you already have two outside corners. But we don't know what's going on behind those closed doors. Is there a plan to get outside of Denzel's contract in the next year or two, making it feasible to sign someone like Newsome, kind of, eat it for a year or two until you can transition him back outside? There's a lot of moving parts here. These guys are all different ages. The only difference is him and Emerson will be up for a contract in the same year. So it's hard to pay both of them, at the same time, unless you have plans to move on from Denzel. So it'll be interesting to see how it works out. I just can't foresee them paying that kind of price tag and leaving him in at the slot. That's where it gets tricky for me.
Yeah, the one thing is you may – and they do play him some outside. It's predominantly in the slot. The one thing is, keep in mind, Denzel he gets beat up physically. So you have your succession plan. So to your point, you may have to put more money into the cornerback position for a couple of years than you really want to. But you do that if you're convinced that Greg Newsome can take over when you transition, away from Denzel. So again, all I'm saying is don't assume that they're going to move on from Greg Newsome, because they may try to find a way to keep him in that succession plan without question.